Good morning, everyone. Soon to be noontime, and we say it's afternoon. Judy Allen here from San Antonio with a high of today in the 80s. So while we're looking forward to Thanksgiving next week, I'm also looking forward to hopefully get some cooler weather. Anyway, we're here today to keep it simple or stamp it up with Blackberry Beauty. And we're going to do a holiday gift as well as two cards. And then following that, we're going to demonstrate the blending pen, showing you some different techniques with the blending pen. I guess would be the best way to do it, because we're going to show you 3 different techniques and see what you like best, all right? So with that, I want to tell you to be sure to share and like us and on Facebook, as well as check us out on YouTube. We'd appreciate that. Our goal is to get to 1,000 subscribers. Whoop, whoop. Anyway, that's an interesting goal. So there you go. So anyway, let's go down to the hands and let's get started. Alright, so the blender pen, what is the blender pen? I'm going to leave this out of the way in a second. This is a blender pen. And there's a number of different things we can do with the blender pen. What I'm going to start off with here is I actually stamped this, and I did several examples so I can show you. This was actually just stamped with a color. I did this with cinnamon cider. Now let's see, I did this about an hour ago, so let's see how well it cooperates. What's nice with the blender pen is you can come, and you should be like, oh yeah, you can see this, it's still there. I can actually come over this, and it's just going to give it a nice, soft, subtle. See how it's pulling in the color there? And I can just give it, I can actually come around here, and I can just give it a nice, subtle look. And that's all that this is doing right here. I'm just taking it, I've stamped it with a color, and it's just going to give it a soft, subtle look. And I actually can go around the petals here if I want to too. But it's just going to give it like I said, it's just soft. I don't know how else to describe it. You might describe it something differently. If so, please share it. I just call it a soft, subtle look. Nice and soft. Sort of dreamy. I don't know if I would call it surreal or not, but it just depends, I guess, if you want to call it that or not. It sort of reminds me of that, though. It's just got to give that sort of soft, nice feel to it. Just doing it. Okay, and so I would do that around the whole thing here. So that would be one way that I use the blending tool. Now you might discover some other ways yourself, but this is just one way. And I'm going to at least have it there so that I can sit it there. And thank you, Lindy. It's, you know, this is just beautiful and simple. You can do this with any color, okay? So it's not limited to this. You can also, the Wink of Stella, I was trying to think what it was. Wink of Stella sort of acts the same way. You can still pull a little bit of that color. What I would do with this sometimes is, let's say that I was stamping a word and maybe all of it didn't come out perfectly dark. I'll use black, for example. Then what I'll do is I'll use the tip of this and I'll come and just sort of drag it over to the next letter just a little bit. And just that little bit of dragging will fill in that color enough so it looks like I stamped it. But I really didn't, you know, because my stamp maybe didn't stamp as hard or whatever. And I'll show you that in a minute and how that can work that. Alright, so see, that's what I've done with that. And see how much a softer look it gives. I also did it in another color so I have to show you. Where, again, it just got the dreamy effect. Now, I did this yesterday. Let's see if we can still... We first check your pen. You can wipe it off on your thing over there too, just like you do your ink pads. But let's see if I can still... Okay, so see, even though I did this yesterday, now I'm sure there's a point where you can't. It looks like it still wants to try to allow me to blend just a little. Not much though, okay? Alright, so that just gives you 2 different colors, but you can see that that's one way to use the blender pen. Alright, let's see here. Let me see if this is the one. This is the one. Alright, so look at the stamp on this side and see what I'm talking about. Here it is stamped right here, but look over here when I stamped it, how it didn't come all the way through. What I can do is I can take this tip here and I can just sort of drag it across those lines, and it'll give it just a little bit darker look, as if I did it right the first time. It might not be perfect, and the other option would be is I could get my ink pad out, and this is what I do frequently too. I'll get out my ink pad. I'm looking to see if I've got that gray here. Yeah. Okay. Just to show you what else I do with it. So like in this particular case, I'm not going to do the whole thing, but I just want to show you. So in this particular case, I usually do this more in words, not in something like this. But if I had a word and it was lightly like this here, I could just dip it like I did with that pen there. See here, I can come in here and make it darker. And I just do the tip. And see how I can make that darker? So that's one of the other things I'll do too. Okay? So the other thing that I was going to show you, and we're going to compare on, is we're going to use pencils to do this, and I'll show you how I use pencils. I'm going to use this one here as a blue, and I'm actually going to come in. Oh, okay, so good thing I brought that pencil sharpener. This happened to me the other day when I was on stage, and I was going to color with this, and it did the same thing, and I didn't have my pencil sharpener. Today, that was a lesson learned the other day. Have a pencil sharpener. Have a pencil sharpener handy. Doesn't cost much. You can go to Dollar Tree or anybody and get these for $1 or less somewhere. I think I got this one for 89 cents or something. Okay, so this one here, I'm just going to show you how we're going to do this. And I'm just going to do this around the center. And I'm not coloring everything. I'm just sort of like, you could say I'm sort of just highlighting if you want to. You know, I'm just getting the center around the flower there. Alright, the same thing here. I'm just going to come over here. And I'm just going to do it. And you'll see why. I don't have to color this whole thing. I can if I want to. I really don't want to. Unless I'm sitting down with Miss Sophia. And then I'll do just about anything that Miss Sophia wants to do. I don't think Zoe would sit down and cut. She might. I don't know if she would do it pencils or not. Sophia would though. Okay. Alright, so then all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my blender pen. Make sure I don't have any more brown there or anything else. And here's, I'm just going to take it and just sort of blend it. Okay. Now the one thing I like about the blender pen is lots of times you can see I didn't have to go and color everything, but I can sit there and soften it. I feel like I have control. You know, it just depends on how much control you want. And, you know, it's what everybody's comfort level is. I mean, those little stinkers will sit there and they can do things I'm not comfortable with, but eventually I figure out if they can do it, I can do it too, alright? So it's just whatever you're comfortable with. I'm comfortable with just taking a pen and just lightly, I'm not coloring, I could, but I'm just sort of lightly just stroking on the sides of where I did my pencil earlier. Okay, to give it the darker look there. And I was just double checking to make sure because I wasn't going to come across this yellow here. Now, again, I'm not really coloring, I'm just sort of dotting around, and you see because it's paper, and this has got something similar to whatever's in the inks in it, so it allows it to spread out a little. Now, the thing is if I want to sit there and possibly come out a little bit further with this, I could touch the edges there and just do a little bit lighter blue. See, I'm just touching the edges there, and I'm just sort of so I'm coming around. You want to be careful. You don't want to get the paper too wet, because if you do, the paper will start doing like a little peeling, little balls of cotton or something, whatever paper is made out of there. And I'm just, so as you can see, I'm just sort of pulling a little bit of the color off. That's it. You know, it's not anything heavy. I'm just sort of touching the edges and just sort of filling it in. Now, I don't have to do this. I could do another color, and you'll see that with the green. And the other thing I've done sometimes too is I've actually just let it dry after I've got my first round, and I'll come back to it later to see if I want to do anything else. But see, it still allows me to come and pick up that color, and I can just do what I'm doing right now. I'm doing all the flower right around there here. And what you'll see is I'm going to blend two colors when I come to doing the leaves. Alright, you see how that is? Now I can come back, and I could come back lightly with this and do that as well too. But I'm going to leave it for the moment. Let's go to some I did not bring the greens. What did I do with the greens? Alright, I didn't bring the greens. I left them where I was working earlier. Alright, well we'll go to phase 2, which is I was going to demo to you anyway. And that is using your blender pens with ink pads. Now I'm going to show you afterwards the difference, because I did 2 cards yesterday. One strictly just the pencils, and then I did it strictly with the ink pads. So because I did not place my pencils handy, we're just going to switch to what I was going to show you anyway. So I just stuck my finger in it. That was the other thing I'm going to say you're going to have to watch out for. Alright, I just stuck my finger in it because it's light green, but I got the light green, and you'll see it right here. See here? It doesn't take much. It doesn't look like a lot, but it's more ink than you realize. Alright, see how I'm doing on the paper there, and you can see it? Alright, so that's what I'm going to do here. Is I'm actually going to take the ink off the tip of here, and I'm just going to come in, and I'm just going to touch on the inside here of these leaves. Now the only thing is I really don't seem to have as much control over color as with the ink when I do it from here as when I do it with the pencils. At least I don't feel so. And so I'm actually much more careful when I do this. But you can see I can take the ink from it and I can still spread it around. And I spread it as far as it'll let me spread it the color I want, because it's easy for me to get it too heavy, because I tend to have a heavy hand. Again, I'm going to do the same thing here, and I'm just filling in the leaves. So see, this is another way you can do this. Now, the other way I've used this tool with ink is, let's say that I've stamped something and maybe it didn't come out quite the way I wanted to, or maybe one side was heavier than the other. Then I'll come and touch it up, I guess would be a good way to do it. So like makeup, think of makeup. If you might need to touch up your makeup, I go and touch up what I've created by doing what I'm doing right now. I'll just put the ink right here and do it like this. Now, so this is how I use the blender pen. And you can see now what's going to happen is I wanted to get a little bit darker color, because this is Granny Apple green. And then I also have here garden green, which is a bright green. So I'm going to show you the difference. So this is here, we're just using all this. Let's see. I'm just going to just lightly dab it, because I don't want to get my paper too wet. Like I said, you don't want your paper to pill. Now I'm going to have a little bit more. Again, you just have to just tap it right here. I mean, some people will just squeeze their ink pad and get ink on the other side. I don't like my ink right there. If you want to put your ink right there, go for it. I can easily do my block and clean my block and do what I'm doing right now. And I like that better. There's just some things I like neater, only because I have a tendency to dip my hands and stuff, because I get engaged in what I'm doing. And I end up getting it all over me if I'm not careful. So that is why I prefer. Now see, that was heavy. See how that came out heavy? So we're just going to take some of that off. I'm just going to use it over here. It's going to be hard for me to get the heaviness off of that I just did. But I can at least, okay, that's as far as I can get with that. Okay, so I'm going to have to come over. See, that's the only thing I get into when I use pens, because once I've done it, there's not a whole lot I can do with it. I seem to do better with the pencils. But it doesn't matter. It's still a technique. Okay, and that's the main thing, is to show you a technique. Alright, now so let me show you, because I don't have to color the whole flower. I think you can get the idea. And I did bring this dark green along. Let me just show you. I think it is important for you to see how things look and know how they look. So if I just wanted to sit there and put some like dark green, just a little bit, green, when you look at leaves and the lighting, whether it's sunlight or inside light or whatever, you're going to have some that's going to look darker than the other. So I'm just going to do this side so you can see how dark that is. Okay, can you see that? So when I go, and I'm just sampling this right now, you can see, even when I do like that, I mean, I have still got a lot of green on there, alright? So in this particular case, I'm just going to go ahead and wipe some of that green off like that. And then I'm just going to come, see now, look at that, see? Okay, so still it's a little heavier than I really sort of wanted, see? So that's the only thing for me with this is I don't have as much control. It doesn't seem like you might have better control. So I just don't seem to have as much control. I can blend this a little bit if I want to. Maybe give it a little bit softer look. So, but again, I don't want to be careful to sit there and not do it too heavy. Okay, so that's the only thing you got to be careful of when you do straight from the inks. It's easier for me to control the pencils on my heaviness and all that I do with my pen and doing my blender pen this way. But I can easily come in through here and just lightly stroke it like this. And see how it just easily fills in. But you can see it's getting lighter there. Again, that's just because it's just, I see that first stroke there, it came off heavy. So that's the only thing you're going to have to be careful of when you do this, because when it's the ink, it's there, okay? And there's not a lot I can do about that at the moment. Yeah, there's just not a lot I can do, okay? So that's the only thing, like I said, is that when you do this with the pen, just straight from ink, that's the only thing I keep in mind. But it's beautiful. It works just like if you were in the blender using those other pens, the color pens that you can get. This does the same thing as well too. All right. So I'm not going to finish this right now, but I do want to show you the examples I showed yesterday, just to again give you an idea. I do love the way the blue came out. The green I'll have to work on. Okay, so this is what I did yesterday. Yesterday, this was done in all ink, and let's see if you can see. I can feel a little bit of paper trying to peel right there. You really can't see it. And this is actually the pencil. I did this in pencil. Now you can see I actually outlined and did all this, and this is what the difference is. So we're still talking about Granny Apple Green. So the pens and the inks are the same colors, but you can see whereas I had darker colors a little bit over here compared to here, and that is just the difference of me using a pencil and using the blender pen versus doing straight ink off the block there and filling in right here. And I'll show you here. Let's see. Don't think I had those two colors. Yeah, I do. Just to show you. So here's the ink Pacific Point, and here's the pencil Pacific Point. But again, it just depends on how heavy-handed you are. It's out of the control, and you're going to see how it's going to do differently. Now, the good thing about both of these is they don't bleed through on the other side. You can see a little bit of darkness, maybe a little bit more darker there, I don't know. But the colors don't bleed through, okay? So you don't, depending on what you're going to use this for, I could easily punch this out and make this into a bookmarker or a note card or something. If the back of it was going to be seen, the main thing is the colors aren't bleeding through, okay? So that's sometimes some of the things you have to look out for if you're using markers, is making sure that it doesn't bleed through. Oh, that one's not bled through, that's just stamped on both sides. Okay, all right, so that is it for the blender pen. So you have choices with the blender pen. It's just a matter of whether you prefer to use it with the pencils or whether you use it for the ink pad. But it's also a wonderful tool to also use to touch up if you need to, whether you stamped something and the color didn't come out completely all the way, or if you, what was the other one I did? Oh, we just stamped just a regular color design, that I was filling in. You can do that as well too. Or you can just fill in a flower, parts of a flower, or any other designs. I mean, if you see all the different things that are so beautiful out there that's been stamped, and you see all the colors, well, you've either used a blender pen or pencils, or you could maybe use the markers, depending on your preference or choice. But the main thing is to make sure that you don't saturate your paper. And I think that's why I like the pencils the best, because the fact is I don't saturate my paper, and I can come back and touch it again. So it's all a preference. But there's some of the different ways, and you saw the first example. I'll show you that first example again as well, where we set up there and we just stamped and used a blender pen to give it that sort of that soft, surreal look. Okay, so there you go. That's it for today with the blender pen. If you have anything else you want me to demonstrate or show, be sure to let me know and I'll prep it so we can do it. All right? Have a blessed week. Have an adventurous week. Go out, stamp something, create something, and share it with somebody else. All right? Happy Thanksgiving. Yes, you might see me next Wednesday. I'm not making a promise. Don't know if I'm live or not. We'll just have to wait and see. All right. Be blessed and goodbye.